we're now being joined live from Uyo, the Akwa Ibom State capital, by the National Publicity Secretary of the People's Democratic Party, INEC Emobong. Thanks so very much, INEC, for joining us on Newsnight. Is this coming as a rude shock or surprise to you and the leadership of the People's Democratic Party? Because less than a fortnight ago, the INEC chairman had, called for a truce and had a meeting between your own leadership and the Wike-led PDP. Wasn't that the case?
Well, that was the case, and you do know that at that meeting, which we objected to being described as factions, the whole essence was the INEC chairman re-echoing the fact that there were off-cycle elections. I think it was a precursor to what is beginning to happen. But the issue there is that the processes that led to the Ekiti gubernatorial primaries were never in question. INEC monitored those primaries, the primary election, and issued reports. The form that the national chairman, Kabiru Turaki brandished, was gotten from the INEC portal because we had received codes to fill candidates. And now, but immediately after that meeting, or immediately before that meeting, the codes were now blocked, leading to having to submit the forms manually. So now the issue is this, that INEC itself, there are facts that need not be proven. Yes, we do know that INEC will be hiding behind the provision that says the national chairman and secretary should forward. And if they hide behind that, they will now say, oh, the plethora of court cases are preventing us because we do not know by what the explanation is, who the national chairman and secretary is. But the national chairman, who is the senior advocate, Elenesil, is also aware of the huge implication that the exclusion of the candidate validly nominated would be. Because which is why we intend to go to court to exhibit processes to show that INEC already knows who the candidate of our party is. So it will be playing ostrich to say that we do not know or we have not had, and there is no contest as to this. There is no court case preventing INEC from recognizing that the administrative process of now writing to INEC, which the party had done, and which INEC is saying, oh, we're receiving correspondences from different places. So the question is, what is the safest route to take in a circumstance like this? And so that is where we are putting it across to INEC that, look, you were there, you saw the processes, that the candidate was democratically elected, he emerged from a process monitored by you, the CTC of your report is there and available, and therefore we are drawing INEC's attention again to the fact that when discretion is available, INEC, even in the SDP case, the Labour Party case, INEC should consciously work for the consolidation of democratic values and not for the antagonism of that. So where we have an issue is the fact that you already have this fact. And so in displaying this, thankfully enough, immediately the courts are back from the holidays, we would approach the court and we can assure our people in Ekiti that Dr. Oluwole Oluyede, who is the candidate, will be on the ballot. We can assure with certainty that the processes that led to his emergence are unchallenged as we speak, and therefore, assuming but not conceding that INEC will want to hide behind the cases in court. But how do you punish him for that? His nomination, his primaries and everything, the documentation of it precedes the issues that you're speaking about. And so that is why we are taking that position to say that INEC's disposition on this matter is suspect.
Yes,
and we will approach the courts.
Yes, you've said that. That's a fact. Even in your press statement that you issued this evening, and you made very sweeping allegation. Are you, as a party collectively, saying that you see the hand of Esau here and the voice of Jacob?
It's obvious for everyone to see that you see processes were ongoing, and at a point, INEC was communicating with the party, which is why we mentioned that it is critical to note that, yes, assuming but not considering that the headship, the leadership, the NWC is in question, which is what is in court. But what of the administrative processes of the party? Where is the party situated? Where is the board of trustees? Where are the administrative staff situated? And so INEC was communicating clearly. They communicated with us during Ekiti, communicated with us during Osun, and all of a sudden we had the codes to upload the details of the candidate, which had been done, and the forms were downloaded and presented. I do know that immediately after that public presentation was done, they came under pressure, which is understandable. And which is why we're also saying that in the processes of electoral reforms, we must look at the issues of appointments, because he who pays the piper dictates the tune. I mean, and you can clearly see the disposition when it plays out on matters like this. So where there is discretion. Now, the gentleman had emerged. The form had been downloaded. So what is the issue? And we resorted to submitting manually to ensure that we have CTC copies, we have acknowledged copies of this. You monitored his primaries, nothing went wrong. There is no other person laying claim to being the candidate of the party in Ekiti, none alive. And so what's the problem?
Well, INEC is saying that there are still, a plethora of cases in courts challenging the Ibadan convention that where the new leadership of the PDP, Turaki, emerged from. You have alleged or you have argued that INEC, witnessed that convention and the rest and wrote his report certifying it. But the chairman, is singing a different...
No, we're not saying they monitored our convention. We're talking about the congresses in Ekiti and Osun. We're not talking about the convention.
Yes, if not, why would the chairman of INEC be calling the same party, or factions, if you like, to a table for a peace meeting? What? Or for the truce?
No. The question is, that meeting was very decorative. In fact, it was performative, because when you look at it, what truths? Assuming but not considering that both parties stood up and hugged themselves, what would have come up when there were still subsisting judgments? So, which is why we saw that meeting as a prelude game to the unfolding scenario that was happening. Because as a senior advocate of Nigeria, he knew there were subsisting judgments of court which had been appealed, and the Court of Appeal, as at that time, was seized of the matter. So, assuming that all the parties now stood up and hugged themselves, they would still need to get to the Court of Appeal to say, our position is now that you allow the appeal, or our position is that we've withdrawn the appeal. So, assuming the appeal was even withdrawn at that point, assuming but not considering that the Turaki-led administration withdrew the appeal, what would still be the effect of the case? So, at that point, that meeting was clearly an ambush to just show the world that, look, we are trying to do our best to become a prelude for the many things that will be coming, one of which is this.
All right, thank you so very much. Inie Mebong is the National Publicity Secretary of the People's Democratic Party. Nigerians will await your approach to the court and, of course, the outcome of the judgment in the Ekiti case, which would probably become a local classicus, whichever way the decision goes. Thanks very much for joining us on this night.